Hi guys, my name is Kirishiki and welcome to my beautiful channel. I am just waking up this morning. This is not my room, by the way, if you guys wonder, and I do not have kids. I'm just doing a workaway situation where I exchange work for a room and board in exchange for helping out, like whether watching kids or farming, etc. But I wanted to discuss my abortion story. And this is actually something that I thought I would never speak upon because I feel like in this culture, in this society, living in America, as a woman, this is something that you're taught to be ashamed of or not to speak upon. Um, so I guess I'm just gonna try to take my time with it. This is actually something that was inspired by another YouTuber that I love to watch, who is named Layla Martin. She touches upon feminine energy and embracing your sexuality a lot, and so she inspires me a lot to just overcome sexual trauma wounds. And so I thought this would be a good healing process to actually speak upon my abortion story. And this is actually something that's very common in this society. And in general, women go through more abortions than you can imagine. But yet we're not speaking on the topic at all. Even friends of mine, have been through similar things. But yeah, I'm just gonna get into my story. What was going through my head, how I feel about it, whether I'm pro or against it, etc. All right, so my story, as I touched on before, I lived with an ex of mine for that I was on and off for about like 4 years, but we lived together for like a year. The relationship ended up being very abusive, meaning physical fights, verbally, emotionally abusive. In every way you can imagine, this relationship was very, very abusive, very toxic, very hateful. And a lot of it has to do because we didn't know ourselves and we pretty much jumped into this relationship. We didn't even know each other for that long of amount of time. But this is something that is very common in this society as far as getting out of high school. You meet someone in high school, you think you like them, and you just go for it without, weighing out the pros and cons, without thinking about karma, cause and effect, etc. So we moved in together, still young, really, really young, thinking playing house. So the relationship ended up being very abusive. But it got to the point where we ended up. I'm trying to remember my timeline of how things happened. So many things happened in a short period of time. But I think we ended up separating for a point of time. But in that time period, before we finally broke up, I found out that I was pregnant. And at this time, I was in despair, always catching myself crying, like sobbing uncontrollably, in deep despair and sorrow. At this point, when I found out I was pregnant, he was nowhere to be found. He would always play the "you're so angry and unmanageable to be around" card, etc. And of course, it was just very abusive. And at this time, it was like, it was kind of, when I found that out, it was pretty much a wake up call for me. I feel like I was around, it wasn't that long ago. I want to say 22, 23 when it happened, or it wasn't that long ago. It was, well, I wasn't with this ex for like 2 or 3 years now, so something around that time period. But when I found this out, it was kind of a wake up call because I guess I always was playing around and being like frivolous with when you're with someone for a long time, you think that you can just have sex and there's no consequences or whatever, and you like, oh, I'm in love, we're bound to one another, etc. But when that happened to me, I was like, whoa, wait a minute. If I were to have a kid with this guy, he's gonna be my child's father. Am I okay with this? That was the first thought that ran through my mind. It wasn't, well, besides, can I support the kid and all that stuff? That wasn't even my primary focus. It was that I wanted my kid, whoever I had a kid with, to have a good father figure and to grow up better than I did, and be taught good morals. So when that happened, and of course I went through the stage of like begging him to be around and all these things, because when you're young and dumb like that, you think you need somebody. You don't need anybody. Especially a man who does not love you or want you, or want anything to do with you. So I was sitting there begging him or whatever, but through that process, it was kind of like an awakening phase. um I started thinking heavily like about my life. I was like, well, shit, I'm playing with my life too much right now. Why, and I figured out like everything had to do with him and him making me happy. But ultimately, he could not make me happy, and I was always miserable. So it was kind of like a moment for me to sit with God and ask, like, this isn't the life I want to live. I feel like I was given another choice, another route. And in this moment, I remember crying to my family, this isn't who I want to be with. Like, I'm pregnant by this man, and this is not who I want to be with. So during that process, I remember trying to even get him to pay for the abortion and things like that, but he wasn't with it because, of course, he wanted me to be bound to him. But it was something that my mother just so happened to be pro-choice. So, and she was the one more so forcing the issue than I was at the time. Because, again, being young and dumb, I feel like at that point in my life, I wasn't really thinking for myself. I was just going to flow, relying on this man to take care of me, and to love me, and fulfill my every woes or whatever, dream or whatever. But she was more so the person pushing it. And to this day, I used to feel ashamed because every stigma that comes upon abortion is bad. But ultimately, I think it saved my life doing that, having the abortion. It was in its early stages too, if that matters. It probably doesn't matter, but where you could just take a pill and get through the process like that. But it kind of saved my life in a sense of like, one, I felt like, oh my God, I don't have to be bound to this man for life. Meaning, if I choose to go on with my life, he will not be a dead weight for me. And I would not have to raise a child and be unhappy and unsatisfied how this child would be raised. And knowing that I was too young to, I wasn't self-sufficient. I'm still working on being, self-sufficient with myself. Knowing that I was too immature to raise a child. All of that came with having the abortion, but a lot of negativity was behind it because it was just something that, especially in religious households or just society in general, make women feel bad about having abortions. But ultimately, I do feel like in the long run, like even now, it's like I know I don't want children, at least not right now. Maybe my mind would change, but that was something that happened that definitely gave me a wake up call, and I was like, you know what, this situation is too abusive, too toxic, and that would have been one thing that this person could hold on to me forever, and use against me, and control my life. I mean, people could think of it in different ways, but that's how I felt in that moment in time. And I was like, no, I'm not going to be this type of person to allow that to happen, or to allow a child to come up in an abusive home, or who knows what could have happened, especially being like a sexual rape victim. All these things, it's like, I just knew I was very immature to bring a child into this world. And especially, it just was a very wake up call of like, I feel like if you can't see yourself having a child with a man, then why are you fucking with him? Basically, it was that much of a wake up call. Not enough to be talking about having raw sex with him, basically, and not having birth control, things of that nature. But for sure, so that happened. Afterward, I became ashamed This was around the time I was like nude modeling as well. I was very open about it, and but I ended up covering up, becoming celibate. All these things happened around this moment of time, and I was just trying to figure myself out. I feel like God gave me a choice to escape that fate, to be honest. And so I guess you can say I am pro choice. At the time, I felt like I was being controlled more so, though, because I didn't think for myself, meaning my mom was like, oh, you're getting an abortion. I was like, okay, I don't know what else to do. Um, but more so, it was a blessing in disguise because I wouldn't have known what to do, to be honest. And I think that every woman deserves that right to have that choice, because it is her body and her life. And ultimately, the kid's life, their quality of life does matter. If you're bringing them into the world, some people may think, oh, you can have them and just give them away, but still, it's the mother's choice in the end. Um, but yeah, I'm trying to think what else happened after post abortion. Going through the abortion was so chaotic, though. The father, of course, he was not there. So another confirmation that he just didn't give a fuck. And yeah, so I'm not going to be ashamed about it anymore, because ultimately I do think it would have been a big mistake in my life. But so if you've gone through an abortion, I feel like you shouldn't be ashamed of it either. Of course, everyone has conflicting opinions, but at the end of the day, you don't have to be ashamed. Um, Realize that it is your past and that you have grown. If you're holding yourself accountable for that mistake or whatever you want to call it, you grew from it. So there's no reason to keep beating yourself over the head and saying, I deserve bad things to happen to me, or, what bullshit, or don't let the baby's father influence your decisions of making you feel like you're a bad human being, or anyone else really, when it is your life. So fuck the haters. No, I'm just playing. But no, this is my story. I hope it's relevant to someone. I hope it helps someone. And you don't have to be ashamed. Like, even if you've been through more than one abortion, that doesn't deem you less of a human being. We all make mistakes. We all are human beings. We're all learning and growing. And we do things. We do things that make no sense. We do stupid things. We do things again sometimes. And sometimes it takes more than one time to learn a lesson. But you are not less worthy of anyone else. You are so worthy. And leave those men behind that do not care for you, and you know who they are. Stop wasting your time with these people who do not cherish you. Cherish yourself. Spend time with people and men and women and just friends and animals that cherish you more than anyone else, because there's already too much hatred in the world. Like, who the fuck needs more hatred added on to the shit they go through? Especially, don't self-hate yourself. There's too much shit going on, like, but yeah. I hope this helps someone. Peace. Share your story too. I feel like it can like set you guys free. Start setting yourself free and start sharing your stories. There's more where this came from. You might be surprised, but sit tight. Ask me the questions. Don't be scared to share, comment, rate, subscribe, whatever. Ask me questions. I'm here for you guys. Peace.